Glow germ is a non-toxic, very fine white powder that is easily spread. The powder doesn't show up on the surface of skin or on objects when viewed under visible light. It is used to demonstrate how disease-causing agents can be spread via direct contact or indirect contact. However, the powder fluoresces under ultraviolet light, revealing the presence of potential pathogens. Participants came into the classroom and were unknowingly exposed to the glow germ powder, which represents a contagious disease-causing agent, such as a virus or bacteria.
So, you guys won't die of this. This is fine. It's just to show you that bugs are everywhere anyways. So, as Monica said, my specialty is poultry diseases. I work mostly with viruses, and since I work with viruses and infectious diseases in chickens, I need to care about biosecurity. So one of the important things in terms of biosecurity is that you need to keep bugs out. But then, most important than that is how do you get the bugs inside, and this is why we came out with this activity. So, anyways, so we'll turn off the lights.
Touch my water bottle.
There you go.
All over it.
Yeah. So if you see, this is how infectious diseases transmit, basically. So there's actually two ways in which they can be transmitted. One of them is direct. So whenever you guys were coming in, we shook hands with you, and that's one of the ways in which we transfer diseases, especially now, which we are in influenza season for humans. I mean, that's one of the most important things. And then the other one would be indirect. Okay, so indirect means like we sneeze on top of a table, and then that table will be infected, like here. We can get infected with any bug, basically. Can be transmitted by those two ways. So what was the source of infection? So A, UC Davis people. B, chairs in the room. C, pens, notepads. D, all of the above. Okay, so most of the people said all of the above. There's two people that said chairs in the room. Well, yeah, but in general, it's everything. UC Davis people? Yeah. A? Yeah. Well, it was us. So both are good. I mean, in general, what I wanted to transmit you is that it's all over, and that's how you need to think about bugs in general, especially when we talk about these bad viruses. For example, Newcastle disease virus and avian influenza. They might be all over, and you don't want to move them from the feed store to your farm or to your chicken coop, and then things from your chicken coop to a feed store or to another coop. All right. So how this infection can be prevented? So the first one, A, restricting access to unknown people. B, disinfect hands, use coveralls or dedicated shoes. C, disinfect utensils. D, all of the above. So I'll start the poll now, and then you guys can answer. More? All right, so yeah, so all of the above. Now, the important thing is that you have to restrict access to unknown people to your backyard, and that's quite important, particularly because you don't know where they've been. So if you invite me to your house, for example, I work on a daily basis with viruses in the lab. If I'm coming from my lab and I go to your house and then you show me your chickens, you will not know if I was working with, infectious bronchitis or with avian influenza, maybe. So you need to assume that everybody, more or less, is kind of infected, Then the other thing is disinfect hands, use coveralls, and dedicated shoes. Dr. Piteski will show in his presentation that it's quite important that you guys have a minimum level of biosecurity, and that means using dedicated shoes and also using coveralls whenever you interact with your chickens. Why is that? Not only because you can bring stuff from outside, but also because you can carry stuff to the outside of your flock. Even though we think that we raise these chickens in our houses and they'll be cleaner than commercial chickens in general, that's not the case. And actually, Dr. Pitesky also will show some results of our experiments in which shows that our chickens have bugs. I mean, and that's normal, like we do, like humans. Then disinfect utensils is part of it, and it would be part of an indirect contact of infectious diseases. For example, my neighbor has chickens, and he asked me for a shovel in order to get rid of the bedding material or of the first layer of soil. Well, if I receive it back, I want to clean it and disinfect it in order to eliminate whatever can be transmitted from one flock to the other. Okay? And this goes along with what we were discussing before. So we have methods of pathogen transmission that can be direct, so from one dog to the rest of the dogs. And in this case, it's really important for you to understand that whenever you have, and that's why you hear more about diseases when we talk about commercial industry, it's because we have 30,000 chickens or 300,000 chickens in one barn, meaning that if they get one infectious agent, that infectious agent will disseminate throughout the whole population. The same happens with your backyard flock, in which if you have 5 chickens, they'll just transmit diseases. Same happens with humans in this season in which we have even human influenza, like we're all getting sick. The indirect way of transmission is through contaminated environment or contaminated utensils, okay? It could be through sick birds or fomites. So I have this question here. What was the method by which you got infected? I'll start the poll. And then it says direct, indirect, or both. So the answer is C. Somebody answered E. All right, I'm doing great. Anyways, C is the answer because basically it was direct and indirect. So direct contact and indirect contact by utensils. Direct contact would be us shaking hands whenever you guys entered, and indirect would be through touching your stuff that got spread. We threw stuff on it. And that's it. So do you guys have any questions? I think this is pretty simple, and that's the idea, just to keep it simple. There's several resources that can be distributed by 4-H. They were created by a colleague called Martin Smith. He's an extensionist from the vet school also. They do this same experiment with glitter, which I hate because you cannot get rid of glitter. At least you take a shower, you get rid of this, but glitter is forever, And we also have direct and indirect contact activities that you guys can do with the kids. So, anyways, I live in the vet school. So if you guys have any questions about infectious diseases, you can contact Dr. Pitesky, who is extension specialist, and then if I can help on anything in terms of infectious diseases, I'll do. Thank you.